Welcome to CinePro, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. Today, we are with you to present the thriller, fantasy, and adventure movie, The Ash-Laden the Hall of the Mountain King, which was released in 2017. Our movie tells the story of a great kingdom surrounded by a range of mountains that no one dares to approach. These mountains are home to a giant known as the Mountain King. He is always asleep, and a legend says he will not wake up unless a princess in the kingdom remains unmarried by the age of 18. At that point, he will awaken, marry her, and destroy the kingdom. For this reason, over the years, any princess who reached the age of 17 had to marry. Now we turn to the king's daughter, Kristen, who has just turned 17. She must marry before she turns 18, or else the giant will come and take her. One day, a prince arrives and asks for her hand in marriage from the king. He spends a few days in the palace trying to impress her and the king, telling them tales of his battles with wild animals, bears, and other feats. A few days later, the king tells the princess to prepare to marry the prince. However, she refuses, and when her father becomes angry with her, she escapes the palace, taking a horse and fleeing. We then meet a young man named Espen, a simple and kind-hearted guy. His father sends him to buy vegetables from the market. While crossing a bridge, the princess rides past him on her horse, causing him to fall into the river. Feeling guilty, she helps him out, but he playfully pulls her into the water, joking, "Now we're even." She gets upset, but he apologizes. She introduces herself without revealing her true identity. When she notices he has food, she asks for some. As she is starving, she eats everything he has. When he asks her name, she avoids answering and leaves. Espen returns home to find his brothers, Paul and Per, working hard since morning, while he has been leisurely shopping at the market. Their father arrives, upset that birds have eaten their crops because they didn't build a scarecrow. The brothers blame Espen, and their father scolds him. When asked about the vegetables, Espen reveals he has none, claiming he encountered a girl on a horse. His father, frustrated, tells him to stay home and guard the house while the others go hunting. Left alone, Espen plays with the fireplace ashes, but suddenly the house begins to shake. He realizes a giant is nearby in the forest. He grabs a stick, pretending it's a sword, but accidentally sets the house on fire. By the time he extinguishes it, the entire house is destroyed. Meanwhile, the princess wanders through the forest and hears the giant's voice. Her horse throws her off and runs away. She tries to escape, but the giant captures her. The next day, Espen's father and brothers return from the forest, shocked to see the house burned down. The father is furious, especially over his wife's picture, which was destroyed in the fire. Soon, the prince and his men arrive, searching for the princess. Espen realizes the girl he met was the princess. When questioned, the family denies seeing her. The prince's men reveal that the king has promised half the kingdom to whoever finds her. Espen's father gives his sons all the money he has, sending them to search for the princess to claim the reward and rebuild the house. He tells Espen to leave as well, saying he no longer wants to see him. Espen follows his brothers but finds a broken mirror and keeps it, thinking it might be useful. He also finds a broken helmet and takes it too. Later, Espen hears someone calling for help. While his brothers continue their journey, Espen discovers an old wizard trapped in a tree. He frees the wizard, who tells him that the Mountain King has taken the princess. The wizard gives Espen a magical map that shows the way to a magical sword hidden in a swamp guarded by a monster. Espen decides to find the sword to defeat the Mountain King. Continuing his journey, Espen finds the princess's hairpin in a hole made by the Mountain King. Meanwhile, the king mourns his missing daughter. His messenger informs him that they've found the princess's horse, her clothes, and a large tooth belonging to the Mountain King. At night, Espen lights a fire in the forest to cook. The princess wakes up in a cave, surrounded by goats and locked inside. The next day, Espen's brothers wander the forest, hungry, and find golden apples. As they eat, beautiful women appear, inviting them to their home for more food. Espen follows his brothers and sees them enter a cave. Inside, the women turn out to be sirens, luring the brothers into danger. Espen finds a golden apple and eats it, unlocking a hidden path in the cave. The cave opens for him, and as he enters, he finds a place that looks like paradise. Literally, he sees his brothers sitting and eating everything they desire, so he joins them to eat as well. Suddenly, he feels something strange and starts seeing the food as worms. He notices something odd about the witches and decides not to eat the golden apple they offer him. At that moment, the spell is lifted from him, and he discovers that the girls are witches living in a disgusting place. They feed him enchanted apples to make him see them as beautiful and marry them. He decides to leave and takes his brothers with him under the pretense that they will return shortly. As they walk through the passage, he tells them that the girls are witches, but his brothers are too enchanted to believe believe him. He slaps them to wake them up, and they realize the truth. The witches chase after them, but they manage to escape before the cave door closes on them. They continue their journey through the forest, doubting the existence of giants. Espen reassures them that giants only appear at night because sunlight turns them to stone. Meanwhile, the princess finds an opening in the cave ceiling. As she tries to escape, she notices a giant opening another door and eating some of her goats. Espen finds a moving thread and decides to take it. Later, he and his brothers find a restaurant and decide to eat there, ordering a lot of food because they are hungry. To their surprise, the prince and his men are also there, arguing with the waitress about the bad food. One of the prince's men spots Espen and his brothers and informs the prince. Espen hides the map he found as the prince approaches. The prince offers a large reward to anyone who helps him find the princess, showing them a lot of money. Espen's brothers are excited and ask him to give the magical map to the prince, but Espen refuses. The prince becomes angry, and Espen throws food in his face and starts a fight. When the prince tries to hit Espen, he steps on the food of a large man, who then throws the prince against the wall. Espen and his brothers escape quickly, with the prince and his men chasing after them. They reach the edge of a cliff with waterfalls below. Espen pretends to hand over the map, but tricks them and jumps into the waterfall with his brothers. After emerging from the water, Espen's brothers blame him for not taking the money and giving up the map, saying they could have built a house by now. They argue, and one of the brothers takes the map and continues walking. Along the way, Espen finds a bear's pelt and takes it with him. Meanwhile, the princess, who is asleep, senses the monster approaching her. She tries to escape, but is caught. She tells the monster she knows they are to be married, but insists he must first get her a dress. He locks her back inside. Espen and his brothers reach a strange area, and Espen becomes separated from them. His brothers are captured by the prince and his men. Espen finds a swamp with a giant monster. He dives in to retrieve a sword and successfully kills the monster, taking the sword. Meanwhile, the prince ties up Espen's brothers, who try to escape but fail, making everyone laugh at them. Espen arrives, wearing the bear's pelt, and scares the prince and his men, who run away in fear. However, Espen trips and is captured along with his brothers. They are tied to a tree, and the prince and his men mock them, throwing food at them. Suddenly, they hear the voice of the Mountain King. The prince and his men flee, leaving Espen and his brothers behind. They try to cut the ropes with a rock before the Mountain King catches them. They escape, but one of the brothers returns to grab the chicken left behind. The Mountain King finds the prince and his men, but the prince hides in a tree. The Mountain King eats the prince's men and uproots the tree where the prince is hiding. Smelling the chicken, he takes it with him. Espen blames himself for everything that happened, but his brother encourages him, saying he has something special that can help them escape their troubles. Espen feels hopeful. The Mountain King imprisons the prince, the princess, and the brother who took the chicken. The prince tries to charm the princess, but one of Espen's brothers tells her the prince only wants the kingdom and doesn't truly love her. She hits the prince with a bone and then turns to Espen's brother, who explains they have been searching for her. When she hears Espen's name, she becomes happy, as she seems to like him. Espen finds the magical sword the prince had taken from him. In the dark forest, he collects glowing insects in a jar to light his way. He reaches the Mountain King's cave, which turns out to be a maze. Using the thread he found earlier, he navigates the maze and finds the princess and his brother in a pit. They help the princess out of the pit just as the Mountain King returns. They find him sleeping outside the cave. The princess jumps over his tail to escape, followed by Espen and his brothers. The foolish prince steps on the Mountain King's tail, waking him. They all run up the mountain, hoping the sunlight will stop the Mountain King. The prince hides under a rock instead of climbing with them. Then they reach the top of the mountain, and he follows them, ready to attack them. Espen strikes with the sword he has in his leg. He hits him, causing the sword to fall off the mountain. When Per throws a rock at him, he also strikes him, causing him to lose consciousness. He is about to kill them all, but the princess distracts him. Espen then gets a brilliant idea and takes out the mirror he has with him, using it to reflect the sunlight onto the monster. At that moment, the monster turns to stone. Per wakes up, and the princess breaks the monster's stone form. This ensures that the monster won't appear again. Meanwhile, the prince dies in the forest and encounters the wizard, asking him for the way to the castle. The wizard tricks him and gives him the wrong direction. We then see the king, who is approached by his messenger. The princess arrives with Espen and his brothers. The king is overjoyed and rewards them, telling his daughter to marry whoever she chooses. Espen returns to his father with his brothers. At that moment, his father apologizes and welcomes him back. When Espen gives him the money, his father is shocked and happy, unable to believe that Espen was the one who brought it. They begin rebuilding their house from scratch. The next day, the princess visits Espen and takes him for a ride on her horse. As for the foolish prince, he falls into the hands of the witches, who keep him for the rest of his life, and he ends up marrying them. And here we reach the end of our movie. If you enjoyed today's movie, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications because we still have exciting summaries coming up. See you in the next episode, and goodbye.